Hello, it is episode 4 of the In Conversation with an Expert series. I am so excited about today's conversation because I think it is going to be immensely important for you to hear. If you are dating fearlessly or fearfully right now, this conversation is going to be so important for you to tune into, because I'm so excited to be speaking with my coach, David Saville, who is going to be guiding us through the 7 elements to help you create deep and meaningful connections with the people that you're meeting and you're dating right now. Whether that is you're dating virtually, doing loads of video dates, going to virtual events, whether you find yourself, being a bit of a texter and speaking to your dates mainly via text, or you find yourself on the phone a lot, these 7 elements that David shares with you is going to be absolutely key to you creating such a meaningful connection with the people that you meet, to really be able to get to know them well and really be able to find out whether there is a strong connection there, whether there's a good match between the two of you, and it will be a worthwhile connection regardless. So I am really excited to see some of you joining in. Hi Isuru, hi Priya, hi Ben, hey ASP Network, and we've got Deeper Events with us as well. So I'm going to bring in the man himself, David Saville, who's waiting in the wing. Join us shortly. Hey David, can you hear me? Oh yes,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hello.
My head seems to be chopped off.
It is.
I'm gonna have to do something about that. I did. Hang on a sec.
David is new to the Instagram live, so we're
Why
learning
would
the
it not?
ways.
I was trying to position it perfectly as well in my preparation.
Your height is working against you. There we go. Yeah, lovely to see everyone's joining in. We've got Food Bay Eats.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this series. Thank you so much for, spending the time to really take everyone that's joining us here tonight through the 7 elements, because as I was saying, I think it's going to be an absolute game changer for anyone that chooses to bring this practice into their dating lives. And as we've spoken about, and as I alluded to in the introduction when I was sharing it through the week, it goes beyond just dating. You can bring it into every relationship, right? Every connection that you have, from the briefest to the lifelong. And I think everyone that's here tonight is in for such a treat. And I'm really excited for us to just unpack and unravel these things together. So thank you so much, David, for being here.
You're welcome. It's good to be here. Thank you for such a lovely welcome.
My pleasure. So as we get started, well, firstly, could you share with us a bit about who you are before we dive into that seminal moment that I think really sparked this all off for you? If you could just briefly share with everyone that's tuning in who you are and what you do.
So currently,
Yes.
who I am now and what I do currently. Okay, so I'm David Saville is who I am, and I train and support people to develop a way of being. Actually, I was actually writing this earlier about what pure coaching is, and it's not techniques. It's actually a way of being, like developing a presence within yourself and a way of holding space for others, so they feel so safe that they can dream, that they can overcome the past, that they can live lives that are beyond anything they could ever imagine. So that is what I'm dedicated to. And of course, it goes into every relationship in life. We get to do this. One of the main problems is people are not connected deeply enough to helping others to feel safe enough just to be honest, just to be themselves. And so actually, something really cool has just happened, actually, just to be confirmed earlier today. I'm going to be training hundreds of chaplains in the US who guide people through bereavement and through terrible things that they have to support people through, I'm going to be teaching them how to hold this space in a couple of weeks from time from now. So the potential of that, right? Like hundreds of chaplains who work with thousands of people over the decades of their life, in those meaningful ways. That's what I do. Yeah.
So powerful, this work, and that's why I'm just so, it's made such a difference to me, not only as a coach, but as we speak about in our coaching calls, right? An advanced human being. And that's why everyone has the opportunity to really learn and practice from here onwards. So I think it'll be great to start to dive into some of that. Just a note to anyone that's joining, if you do have any questions for us at any point, just press on that little question mark icon and type your question. It means that we can bring it up on the display and share it with everyone that's watching us as well. NK Khan, hello to you. Thank you for joining us. So as we were discussing this conversation that we were going to have earlier today, there was, as I mentioned earlier, this seminal moment for you about 7 years ago that really shaped the coach that you went on to become, and why this work was so important to you. So could you share with us, please, what happened 7 years ago?
Yeah, it's almost to the day as well. Like, we're in a couple of weeks, right? It's almost exactly 7 years. So at this point, right, I've been in the same job for 17 years. I mean, different roles within the place, but the same journey to work, right? So it's very important to understand that I was a very fixed individual, very scared and very rigid in my life and what I did. Like 10 minutes from home, I worked, right? I did not challenge myself or live, the person I am today is not the person I was then. But I had wanted to live a better life. I'd wanted to create more, and I wanted, from having had some coaching, to become one, right? To actually maybe that could be my path. So I got myself this great coach, and one of the questions that he asked me to ponder, and this one's about asking people, I had to ask 5 people in my life, what was the impact that my presence had on them after I'd left? So if I spend time with someone when I've left, like, what are they left feeling, essentially? What's the after effects of my presence? So, wanting to become a coach, looking for signs really of that, the signs. Or, often people say when they want to become a coach, like, people say that of course you should become a coach. And so I was looking for those signs, essentially, is what I was doing with that question. So I asked a couple of friends, a couple of colleagues at work who I was close to, actually, and spent probably more time with than any friend. And then a guy who wanted to run a big creative business with me. So I asked these 5 people, what their impact was. And it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. Oh, it was, as you can tell by me, what's knocking my camera over. So the best actually was pleasant, like a warm presence, like nothing earth shattering, nothing really deeply impactful in any way, really. You could say it about a cup of tea, right? That was my impact of the best, the people that I, was closest to. Then when it came to like someone else, it was like 0. It doesn't matter if you're there or not. And although he was being a little bit unkind, he was actually, there was a lot of truth to it. And from our experience together, it made sense. And so it was like no impact, or to be honest with you, what they gave me was also no impact, right? It was just like, if I was to die and that would have been the end of my life, it would have been like I didn't exist, right? I would have made no imprint, made no impact on anybody. And that was horrible. And it wasn't about it being all like true in every single relationship in my life, but it exposed something that I knew to be true. And that was, if I was in a group, I would never be the first to speak up and share my opinion, because I was scared of, like, I'd get it wrong, scared of looking stupid, scared of being criticized and attacked, really, for just being wrong. So I would never do that. I would be the one who would agree with someone, right? And then I'd attach myself to if I agreed with something, I'd attach myself to that. Now, of course, agreeing with someone, while nice, is not an impactful, is it? There's nothing happening there. There's just, just cheerleading, essentially, from a distance, right? Has no real impact. And so what it really connected me to, it's, if I don't change something within myself, not only will I not become this coach, not only will I not be able to change my life and create a life beyond the one I've got, but I'm just gonna, like, it'd be like disappearing. You know, it's like my presence would get even worse and disappear. And I'm like, that cannot happen. I want to make a difference. And so I'm going to have to get to work, you know. And that was really like the beginning of like being, you know, meeting myself, not liking what I saw, and then realizing I don't even know what I think half the time. I don't even know what my opinions are, because I don't share them, right? They're inside my head. And it's very different when you start actually saying out loud. You realize, well, I was realizing I don't even know what I believe. I don't even know what I think. I don't even know what my opinions are. I don't even know what I stand for, any of these things. And so I set about finding out. So here you go. It's 7 years. And obviously I've changed a little bit since then.
Just a little.
Just a tiny bit now.
Because you say often, right, people say it to you, and even when you look back on yourself at that time, it's like looking back at an ancestor.
Oh yeah, distant relative from afar that someone's told me about. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's like. Because I remember it, but it's, I mean, it's, you know, it's just like it's a different human that was there to who I am now, obviously. You know.
And would you say one of the keys to you being who you were 7 years ago to who you are now was through conversation?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's like probably the foundation of everything, really. Yeah.
And the willingness to keep conversing, right?
Yeah, and it's like, and what does it mean to converse though? Because it's about, in fact, when you were sharing something earlier about a brief encounter, I was thinking a brief encounter, as long as it's a deep encounter, can be one that's lasting. You know, it can have a lasting impact. You know, if a brief encounter can be deep, and it's like it's the depth of conversation. It's actually saying something that matters. It's actually you have to risk, right? If you're going to be in a conversation with someone, there should be something at stake. Especially when you're meeting someone, not necessarily if you've known someone for a while, although those are the juicy interactions, right? There should be some risk, but especially when you're getting to know someone, got to be willing to risk something, expose something, and have them not like it and judge you for it, or else, you know. In fact, there's a song, I forgot who it's by now, but there are some lyrics in it that say, you know, you're in love with someone that doesn't exist and never did. You know, and it's like that's what most people are doing when you're not showing things and taking these risks. They end up thinking you're someone you're not, have opinions that you don't have, liking things you don't like. And then if you end up in a long-term relationship like that, then and eventually that's going to crumble. You're going to want to like break out and actually be honest. And suddenly you've actually lied to this person. You know, you've actually deceived them. You didn't mean to, but you have. And then you've deceived yourself, and you're in this horrible like relationship that was built on nothing, actually. You know?
And so here, as we embark on this 7-element journey, what we're doing is creating the opportunity for someone to really build solid foundations, a strong foundation in their connections, from the briefest to the most, well, as I said, lifelong. So I think we're perfectly poised to start digging into them. So I've got them all written here as well. And anyone that's watching, I would urge you to grab a notebook and a piece of paper, because there's just going to be so much here for you to begin practicing straight away. So when we spoke about it again earlier, we found that actually there was a way for us to essentially split this into sections. So there's like the prep work that someone may need to do as they're about to send a text message to the date, go, pick up the phone to have a phone call or have their video date. So could you start by sharing the first of those, of the prep section?
Yeah. So the first 3 elements will be the prep, right? So first one is like activating your senses. You know, it's like you don't want to go into an interaction thinking a lot, because if you do that, you're going to miss what the person says. You're not even going to know how you feel about what the person is saying or doing. And so activating your senses, so see, hear, feel is the basic 3 to focus on, really. And just, it's very simple how to do that. Like one of the things also, which is useful to know, is a lot of us, especially when we're looking at screens, and we tend to be in like foveal vision, which is like this vision here. And what that does is it actually is more stressful. Actually, it's a more stressful way, or it can create stress in the body. Just that alone can create some stress. So just going to peripheral instead. So you may look straight ahead, and the way to do it And then whilst you're looking at a single point, you just expand your vision all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So at the moment you can do this and just notice, what can you see on the very far side? So I can see this like pink tree I've got over here on my left, and I can see the door handle just to my right. So the farthest you can go. And then expand your vision up and down. It's one that people often forget about, actually. It's like go to the top and bottom. So what can you see at the very top? And what can you see towards the floor near your feet? What can you see? And then in this is like activating your peripheral vision, which actually can be a more relaxing state all by itself. I've given this to athletes before they go onto the pitch or into a perform, and it helps them be more relaxed and connected before they begin. And then there's activating your hearing. So right now, as well as listening to me, what else is in your auditory environment? Can you hear anyone in another room or outside? Just take a moment to connect to your senses of sound. Maybe even hearing the tone of your own voice as well, or your own breathing, as you're here. And then finally, sensations. So what can you actually feel within your body? So just scan, really. It's quite simple. So like the eyes are a good one. Like there's a lot of senses around here. So eyes, nose, lips. What can you sense within yourself? And then go deeper. Move down to your chest area, where a lot of our emotions are stored, tend to be activated, right, in our chest area and stomach area. Just pay attention. Like, what do you actually feel? And don't describe it, though. It doesn't matter what the description of the feeling is, just awareness of whatever it is you're feeling. So just taking a couple of minutes to do this before you go into any interaction. It's more likely to have you feel more connected within yourself, like grounded, and more prepared to actually be able to receive what's being shared with you. So that's the first one, right? That's step one of the 7 elements.
Which is so important, because what I've found with clients and anyone I speak to that's dating right now is there's this real energy of just being rushed, showing up to the date flustered and focusing on what is this person going to think of me, and am I going to enjoy this, and really sort of future pacing the thing before they've even sat down and had a chance to connect with the fact that they're going on a date, or they're going to have a conversation with someone potentially new. So just to factor in those extra few minutes, if your date is going to start at 7 o'clock, have like 5 or 10 minutes beforehand where it's just going to be your time to activate these senses, and it will dramatically shift the way that you show up to this conversation and the way that you have an opportunity to connect with your date as well. So I think this is really, really important. Isuru is saying truth, right?
Thank you, Suru.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was going to be amazing for people just to really calm, as you said, calm your senses. Really, really important. People feel way too rushed ahead of dates. So, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so actually a couple of things there. So one, I would say more than 5 minutes, because 5 minutes is not going to be enough. And if you actually care about the date, you really want it to go well, why are you planning your day so you have only 5 minutes to actually prepare yourself? Because you're about to embark on an adventure, right? You don't know what kind of adventure it's going to be, but if you're actually going to go on a date, you wouldn't be able to leave it 5 minutes because you'd have to travel and get there, right? So at the moment, if you're connecting virtually, prepare yourself, give yourself more time. You're also going to be likely to be less anxious if you've done this, right? By actually even just being aware of your senses. If you've got feelings of anxiety or nerves within you, just that awareness alone and connecting to them, change them. Awareness changes. It's part of the process. So it's very good to do before you get onto a date. Yeah, but I wouldn't leave it only 5 minutes. I'd leave 10, 15 at least, if not longer, really. Depends how important it is to you as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think that in itself is an important point. How important is connecting with this person, going on this date? Remember what I speak about a lot with fearless dating is to connect to the gravitas of what you're trying to create. For the most part, the people that I get to go on this fearless dating journey with is that they want to create a deeply committed, often lifelong relationship with someone. Well, okay, if you want to create that, how do you set that up from the get-go? Who do you need to be from the outset in order for something that immense to be created? So yeah, more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. I love the way you like said it like it's you're telling them off now.
Yes, telling myself off also. More than 5 minutes. Proper planning here. Get a good amount of time in there. Of course, because you're saving time on the commute that you would have to meet someone right now. So essentially have that time still in your diary for you to have this moment to activate your senses and connect with yourself in this way. It will be so worthwhile. So yeah.
So what you shared there actually sparked something which it's not overtly the 7 elements, but it is like a mantra of mine, right? Which is through connection, anything is possible. And so one of the problems of going into like this, like dating to date, is you tend to have one idea of what you want. And that fixed outcome can be problematic, because the reality is the chances of this one person being that is quite small, really. You know, maybe if you've done this a lot, you increase your chances. But when you think about it, like the chance that this will be the person you're with for the rest of your life when you first meet is very unlikely, right? However, it's far more likely it could become a friend. It could become someone you collaborate with if you've got some career of some kind. It could be someone who just loves your artwork and can share it with their friends. It's like if you begin, yes, you may want romance, you may be attracted to this person so far, but if you truly enter into it with a presence of like, I would love that, and I would love just to connect for real, whatever way this goes. That will also make a massive difference actually to your intention and the quality of your connection.
100%. I mean, I had that experience myself where I went into a dating event and came out a business partner.
That's right.
Literally anything is possible. And I think what you shared about the peripheral vision is really important, to just think about our fearless dating journey in that way as well. Because sometimes we just think moment by moment, date by date, relationship by relationship. But if we actually zoom out and look at the entirety of the journey as best we can, of like, where am I right now? Where have I come from? Where am I right now? Where's the possibility of where I can go? And this is one stop. This one conversation is one stop in that beautiful, epic journey that I'm going to go on. And that can just in itself make such a shift to how much we enjoy the whole dating journey, not just live, almost like living for the dates. Right? And I think one thing that I've really come to understand with fearless dating is that dating is not just the dates themselves. Dating is the whole thing. When we're dating, it's like it's the way that you walk down the street. It's the way that you show up, when you're hanging out with friends, and as well as the dates, the romantic dates, as well as the text messages. And sometimes we can just fixate on the date being us dating, but there's an energy and there's an intention that we carry when we're like, yes, I'm ready to date. And I think if we carry that all the way through, that dramatically shifts the way that we show up to the way that we date. So I love that actually peripheral vision. We can do that with our fearless dating journey as well. That's very cool. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Nice. So smooth. So smooth. Learn from the best, right? So number one, activating senses, right? See, hear, feel. And that's that's the first stage of the prep work. So then where does that lead us to?
So that moves us into step 2, right? Which is an abyss of silence. So one of the main problems, and I ran a meetup group called Deep Connections London with a friend of mine for 2.5 years. We did 400 events, had thousands of people come through. And through that, I found it very difficult when I paired people up to get them to shut up for more than 30 seconds. So sometimes I'd ask a massive question, right, which is too big really, but I'd ask a question like tell your life story, right? And you've got a couple of minutes, right? Stupid, really, but I was early in my development, so I thought that was a good thing to do. But still, it's a fun thing to try. And within 30 seconds, people would like run out of things to say, right? And someone else had jumped in, and they were just talking at each other. And I kept finding that repeatedly. Like people would find it difficult to actually just be silent and listen to someone else. And then the other person if they weren't interrupted, would feel it really uncomfortable because that's not usual, and would lose their train of thought because it's like they get self-conscious. And it's like you can't even speak for a minute or two without being interrupted, and you can't do it without interrupting someone. Okay, so that's when I incorporated what I call one-way conversations. I'm like, you're not allowed to speak. Only one of you gets to speak. And I had a little bell, like a Buddhist singing bowl that I would ding when it was time for them to swap. I had to incorporate this rule. Still, it was hard for some people not to do it. So then I had to go deeper into it. So I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do. When you're listening to someone, listen as if no one else exists and if nothing else exists. Whatever this person is sharing with you is the most important thing you've ever heard in your entire life. And that's the way to give it. And the way to do that, you need an abyss of silence within yourself. That means you're not thinking about what you're going to say next. That's not trying to figure out what it is you need to remember. Because if you actually pay attention and listen, you're going to remember, because it will create a memory within you, right? So with the abyss of silence, something really important to understand, if you are thinking about anything while someone's speaking to you, it's the equivalent of having someone sitting next to you talking in your ear. So that's what you're doing to yourself. When you're thinking in your head, this is going on. So what are the chances that you're going to receive what's being shared, and you're going to remember enough of it, or even connect to the most important parts, and be able to have a beautiful, connected, deep conversation with someone, or at least an explorative one that builds together? You're going to make it very difficult. You're going to make it more likely that you talk at each other, you don't really connect, you stay on the surface, and you just have another really dull conversation. So that abyss of silence, it's hard to do. You'll find yourself thinking. You'll find yourself feeling really uncomfortable when you're silent for more than a minute or two, most of you. And especially when you're being silent in your head too, because most people, when they're silent, there's a lot's happening. So it'd be hard for you to do for most of you, but it is worth it. So when you notice yourself talking, bring all of your awareness, activate those senses again, and bring all of your awareness back to receiving what this person has to say.
And there's something that you shared with us a few weeks ago, and I shared it with a client earlier this week, which I think the reason why I shared it with her was because there was this feeling of being quite uncomfortable with silences in connections. And what you shared was make the person in front of you more important than your discomfort.
Yeah.
Could you speak to that a bit more, please?
Yeah, because if you're feeling uncomfortable, and what that discomfort has you do is to speak to them, and it's not because you've got something meaningful to say. It's not because you've something beautiful you want to bring to the conversation, but it's because you feel uncomfortable. You're treading on that person's like their soul, essentially, right? Whatever they might be about to share something like deep with you, and if you're interrupting them, if you are acting through your discomfort, you are making them feel unsafe. And they're very likely to just skim on the surface and end up breaking the connection, which is very normal for people. You must understand, every time you interrupt someone when they're speaking, you are making them feel unsafe in this conversation. It means that they can't just share and feel safe to share. By doing this and by making your discomfort, you might feel uncomfortable. You may feel like an urge to speak. And then of course we move into an anti-sign, don't we? Actually.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's quite important to understand. Often you get that feeling like, oh, I really want to say this, or, oh, this happened to me. You get that urge and you're really excited. That's an anti-sign. That's a sign to be silent for longer. Because if it's still important in a few minutes from now, when this person actually finished speaking, then you can share it. You're going to remember it if it was actually something worth saying. If it's not, though, it's likely to have been something you just got triggered by and would have messed up the connection that you were trying to build together.
Yeah, that's crucial, because again, another thing that clients share with me is for the type of relationship that they want is this space, this place of such safety and security in the sense of being a place where you can just bring anything and everything to each other. And one of the ways in which we can do that is to bring this abyss of silence, for someone to know that their partner is truly listening to them, because we are so accustomed to not actually being listened to deeply enough. Like actually, when we do the rounds of sharing, when we in the Fearless Dating program, one of the things is that people feel such a huge difference in what it feels like to actually be listened to by a group of people. It's like, it's quite a shock to the system to begin with. Like, wow, people were actually taking in what I was saying, and I didn't feel like they were distracted in any way. And that level of presence can create so much possibility for someone and with someone. So this is imperative. Like, this is a crucial step. And as you said, if you're struggling with being able to create an abyss of silence, to essentially go back to step one, activate the senses.
Yeah.
So would you as we go through the 7 elements, is that what you would recommend to anyone that's watching today and wanting to implement this, if they're struggling with one step, to always go back to activating senses?
Yeah. And the peripheral one is a great access point for that, because it helps you to expand that awareness, and then also your feelings too. Those two are probably going to be the most important to go back to if you're during a conversation, and the easiest, because we connect through feeling. Actually, it's like, especially when we're connecting with people all over the world. It's like people can seem like they come from very different places, and they may have very different experiences of life. But where the majority of us actually do really connect is through emotion, right? So what we feel, we've all, most of us, I say, because there are some rare exceptions, but most of us have had an emotional experience of life that is very similar. We've experienced similar things, and so that is what we need to be connected to if we want to connect with someone. So we need to be able to feel an element of what's being shared with us. So definitely go back to your senses, particularly your feelings. And peripheral vision is a good one because it does help relax your brain as well.
We all need to be a bit more relaxed on our dates, I think. So.
Chill out.
Yeah,
chill out,
exactly.
And actually enjoy it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, dating, it can be fun.
It can be a lot of fun. Yeah.
This is one of the ways how. So brilliant. So that leads us into step 3, which I just love because of what it has in the title. It fits in beautifully with fearlessness and fearless dating. So please reveal step number 3.
It is a courageous, loving presence, is what that is. The ability to, and again, this is related to what you just pointed to, which is making what this other person has to say more important than your own discomfort. But it's like being courageous. It's quite important. If you go into any interaction, that you're willing to take a risk, because every new connection you have to risk. You have to risk people not judging you in some way, not liking what you have to say or what it is you're doing. You've got to risk that to find out if there's something beyond the initial connection, right? So courageous, loving presence, if you connect to it with inside yourself, and the willingness to be that for someone else. And this is a good hack. So because, of course, we can get very self-conscious. It can be about, how am I going to be perceived, or what they're going to think of me. Those kinds of stuff can come up, which I'm sure that you've experienced many times with your clients, right? So by making it about the other person, though, it's like, I'm going to have a presence so this person knows that anything they share with me is okay. I'm going to listen deeply. I'm going to go in, and actually I'm going to take a risk first, even. Like, this is what I call building a bridge as well. So prepare for this. So before, of course, you haven't even started yet, right? This is preparation. Prepare yourself to go in there and be willing to take the first risk. So you can create that safe space for someone else, building a bridge that enables them to maybe walk over it. Prepare yourself for that. Prepare yourself to be courageous and to connect to that space within yourself.
I love that. So beautiful, because one of the things with dating is, as you said, there's that self-consciousness. And when we're thinking about our date, what I've seen to happen is, it's, what are they going to think of me? Right? As opposed to what I share with my clients a lot is, especially when we're thinking about virtual dating, is that on the other side of that screen, on the other side of that profile is a human being, someone with
Hopefully.
feelings. We hope, right? Let's not bring up the bots conversation. But you know that most of the time there's a human on the other side that has feelings, has dreams, desires, fears, all of those things.
Yeah.
And we want to just honor that, regardless, I think, of whether you like that, you feel that you like actually fancy them, you like them, you want to pursue a connection. I think to bring in that level of loving presence and just honoring that person in front of you and just respecting them, that they've shown up to connect with you that day, that evening, and regardless of what happens, you just acknowledge each other for that alone. I think that brings such a different energy to what we've become so accustomed to with dating, which is like, what are they going to think of me? What do I need to do so that they'll like me? Or, oh my God, I really don't like this person. So there's almost like that feeling of animosity towards them. But actually, if you bring this courageous, loving presence of, we're just on an exploration together, and I'm going to try and build this bridge by going first, this is a really, really important point, right? Of if we want to create deep connection and safety with someone, is to take the lead. And often what happens on dates is we'll ask questions and then we'll go silent. When is their answer going to arrive? and there can be big questions thrown around on a date as well, right? And so being the person that's willing to answer the question of, well, this is what I think about, or this is what my experience of that has been, or however you want to phrase it, depending on what the question is exactly that. It's that building of a bridge and the creation of safety. And it's almost like reaching a hand out to someone, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Especially since, like, most people, men and women, tend to be waiting. They're waiting for signs. They're trying to figure it out, you know. They're trying to figure out if it's safe, right? It's like, do you think I can share this yet? I don't know. And it's like, you can really shortcut the whole process, right? And just go and just be honest. And so I want a real connection. We're just human beings. We're probably going to screw up if we try too hard and try to pretend to be anything else. Do you want to have a real conversation? Should we try that? You know, let's brace. But, you know, it can be a wonderful invitation. And obviously, it'll probably take a bit of practice for you to be relaxed in that way. But if you truly go in wanting to connect and you have that activated, loving presence, with practice, you will, because you have to be able to give that to someone, you have to feel it. So with practice, like even having the intention to do it will help in some way. If you practice this, you will one day have that be your default, and you are able to give that to people wherever you are, which has them feel immediately safe in a way that they don't even know why, they just do. Because you are the one going first. You are the one who's real. You're not trying to hide anything. They ask you a question. There's no, oh, is that okay? Is that one? No, I can't share that one. I don't know, my filing cabinet, I'll put that one away. Oh, this I can share. You know, there's none of that going on. There's like a real shortcut between, like, someone does ask you something, you just answer it honestly, whatever the honest truth is. And that creates that flow, that spark between you. You know, the loving presence, though, you having it and going first is vital to be able to do that. Otherwise, also, you walk around like waiting for someone else to take the lead all the time. You're waiting for life to just happen to you. And that just feels horrible anyway, no matter who you are, no matter what you want from a relationship. You know, when you're not the author, when you're not the one who can take the lead, it just feels bad. You know?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And just to go back to something that you shared of when we're waiting or thinking, is it okay to say that? The courageousness comes from, again, something that you shared with us a while ago about that willingness for a connection to come to an end.
Yeah. Right. You've got to have that. You've got to have either a real connection where they can actually, the things you've said that you've done in your life, they're not going to judge you for. That's really important, actually. Like, there should be if you don't like some of the things you've done in your life, but at some point you're going to start sharing what you've done that you didn't like. If they can't accept the fact that you're a different person who maybe did some stuff that then you can't move forwards with someone. So it's unacceptable for someone to judge you for who you used to be. The same vice versa, by the way. As long as you haven't done anything like, there are some, obviously there are some value, there are some exceptions, but on the whole, most of us, our bad stuff is just momentarily bad. It isn't necessarily, like going to prison bad, right? Or, getting death sentence on death row kind of bad. In which, although it can feel like it, right? Which is why we often protect those things. But we should be able to just be honest. Yep, I did this. I'm ashamed that I did these things, but I'm going to share them with you because I want you to know who I used to be and who I've become now because of those things, or in spite of those things, or how I've grown beyond all those things, right? You should be able to say and do everything that feels right to you, that is honest and true, and someone else should like them and be drawn to you. And they will, if it's the right person at the right time. That is the potential that's here for you. And because we haven't even started going on a date yet, right, at this point. But
yeah, exactly. We're still prepping.
All this potential is within this prep. Yeah.
That just shows how differently your dates could go just by taking the time to do this prep. Like, I hope for those of you that are watching are really feeling just how different your dating experiences could be from this moment onwards if you lay these really strong foundations from the outset. So it's a great place for me to just press pause and just, if anyone that's watching us live, if you have any questions about anything that we've discussed so far about the prep work, please don't hesitate to ask again. Press on that question mark button and we'll be able to see what questions you have, and David can answer them for us. So Mel's loving it. She's laughing out loud. I think that was at your death row comment. I'm glad you're loving the content as well. So let's then dive into the date itself. Date. Oh, hang on. Mel's, let's just pause there for a moment. Did I miss prep? Please, could you summarize the first points? Right. So we were just speaking about ahead of going on a date with someone, there's some essential prep work that needs to be done in order for you to more deeply connect and for it to be a more worthwhile experience for you. So David, could you just summarize the first 3 points of the prep?
Yeah, sure. So first, make sure you're giving enough space beforehand so you're not rushing to it. Don't do that. Second, it is to begin by activating your senses to make sure you're connected to what you feel and what you can see and hear. Then we are preparing ourselves to have an abyss of silence within, so we're not thinking. So we are not having a voice that's distracting us from the person in front of us. So we'll be having that abyss of silence to receive. And then we are preparing ourselves to be courageous with our presence, and that is to be willing to hold space for someone else so we can be non-judgmental of whatever it is they're going to share with us and treat it with care. And we're going to go first and share something and be willing to take the risk to build the bridge that can have them walk across and connect with us.
Beautiful, beautiful. So then, as I said, that leads us into the date itself. So where are we going once we've brought all three of those elements in?
So obviously you begin and you start connecting. When the other person is sharing with you, it's very important that you are receiving as much of it as you can and connecting to it. So you shouldn't have to try to remember what someone said. It shouldn't be hard work. You shouldn't have to figure out what you've got to say. Now, if you've done the prep work well and you have this abyss of silence within, your senses have been activated, and you're now got this courageous, loving presence, and you've gone first, and now it's their turn. They're sharing something with you. They're talking about their life in some way or something they dream for the future, whatever it is that they're saying. Build your own VR world of that. So step into within yourself. So you want to feel, see, taste, touch, whatever you can do. So as if you're reading a book, right? When you're reading a book, you will create an imagined experience of what you're reading. And then that becomes a memory, doesn't it, when you do that? So we want to be doing that when people are talking to us, building our own representation. And when I used to be terrible at being able to do this visually, it's something I had to work at. So it doesn't matter if you can't see very well, you can't perceive things in sight, it's not so important. You can get better at it, which can help. But the most important part really is that you are building a representation within yourself. So you're just following along without talking, right? Without trying to figure anything out. And then the one after that, the fifth element beyond that, is the actual sensory immersion within it. So you are, as best you can, when they're sharing, you are experiencing what they're sharing as if it's happening to you, as best you're able to do that. Just as if you were watching a movie, right, and you become the hero or heroine of the movie, don't you? You or whoever it is you relate to. And when something happens, you might jump or whatever it may be. When this person is sharing, as best you can, step into that environment that you've built and be inside of it. It will make everything so much easier. What you shared something about that, didn't you, earlier, actually, about your experience?
Yeah, I was coaching a client earlier this week, and we were playing the What I Want game, where clients just share with me on repeat what they want from their relationships, from their lives. And as my client was sharing her experience of the relationship that she wants to be in, I was able to step into that world with her. So I almost like took her place, her form, and I was experiencing the long walks that she was going on with her partner, with their dog, as they were, having fun and having these deep conversations. And I was her in that moment, and it made it so much easier for me to connect with her, to feel all the feelings that were elicited as a result of being inside of her world. And it meant that I could more deeply connect to her dream, to then be able to be a better coach to her, to better guide her and help her to be able to create that for herself in her life. And man, it just feels good. Right? And just for this point as well, for building a VR world and immersing yourself into the VR world, for any of you that are watching that are creating or thinking about putting together an online dating profile, this is something that I really press the importance of at the Profile Makeover. Because essentially your profile is that opportunity for you to, as I like to think, fling open the doors to your world and say, hey, come into this space with me and come check it out and see if you enjoy being here. Right? Does this world appeal to you? Are you enjoying being in the company of these things that I most love and excite me and all of these things? And that's an opportunity for us to implement those 7 elements from the get-go, from the profile. Like even before you've even spoken to someone or connected with someone, your profile has the opportunity for someone for you to build your VR world and for someone to immerse themselves in that VR world with you. It's such a powerful opportunity. So any of you creating your dating profiles right now, please remember this. This is such a crucial part of the creation of a powerful profile, and then being able to create beautiful matches as a result of that. So just wanted to press the importance of that here as well.
Haven't you got a training for that as well?
I have. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely segue. Yes, for any of you watching who would really love to be supported in the creation of your fearless dating profile, and really be able to connect deeply with people online and actually start to create connections, meaningful dates, meaningful connections that have the possibility to lead to beautiful relationships, then I do have the Fearless Dating Profile. It's an online course. It's self-paced. You can do it in the comfort of your own home, in your pajamas, at your leisure. And that's available for you now in the links in my bio. You can just click on there and you can get access tonight, this very night, and start creating your profile straight away. So please dive into that if you would like to build your VR world on your dating profile.
Didn't you say like people have been through that, actually like hated dating and that whole thing, but actually just going through that process like changed their relationship to dating completely just by doing that?
100%, because it went beyond just being words on a page of I am adventurous and I am looking for someone that is funny and this and that, or just like meaningless words on a page, to actually firstly them being able to connect to what it is that they want and to get excited by the prospect of that. And of course, we're talking about, if we go back to what we said earlier about dating can be fun, it can be an enjoyable experience. And one
It
of
really
the ways,
can.
it really can, right? I hope we're selling this well to you. It really can. But one of the ways in which is for you to be connected. So many people are so disconnected to the reasons why they're dating, what they want it to feel like, how they'd love to experience it. And it's because they're missing this key step of, hang on a minute, why am I dating? What do I want to create as a result of doing this, going on this journey? What would I love to experience and share with someone? And through going on that journey in the profile makeover, we get to spend time doing that. And then it's like, wow, I love my profile. I'm excited by my profile. Can't wait to put it out there and let other people see this and dive into this world as well. So it's such a beautiful experience just to get that level of clarity. I think so many of us want.
Yeah, and also people are going to get to know themselves, because until you go through this kind of process, you probably don't actually know these things, right? So you're going to discover about yourself. And also, I think, is the program like, it was actually like from an active workshop or something, right? So it feels like they're part of a workshop. So it's not like just like a bunch of videos, right? It's actually an experience.
Yeah, it feels as close to you being in the live workshop as possible. What was really wonderful was the participants that took part in the last profile makeover all very kindly agreed to what they were sharing, what they were experiencing, to remain in the footage of the profile makeover course itself. So it's not just me talking at you, telling you do this, do that. It's a conversation.
Although that would be awesome too.
Do this. Sometimes there's a bit of that. Sometimes there's a bit of that. But for the most part, we're all in it together. We're all going on this journey of creating your profile together, which is just so beautiful. And it's alive. It's got this real energy of being a live journey that we're going on together. So I think it makes it all the more beautiful and all the more powerful as well. So please do join me for that journey. So as I said, link in the bio if you do want to sign up for the online course. So thank you, David, for getting me to share.
You're very welcome. Yeah, it just made sense.
Yeah, it did. So there's the building a VR world. There's the immersion of yourself in the VR world.
And I just want to connect like the five elements we're talking about. I mean, this is essentially a way of like experiencing as close as any human can to another human what someone else has experienced. So it's like advanced empathy we're talking about here. So when someone's sharing, you're not just listening out for what they've said or how you can interact. You are actually feeling what they've shared with you because you've actually experienced it in some way yourself. And that means you've created a memory of it, by the way, which makes it easy for you to, when you're having lots of dates, you may be dating multiple different people, right? And sometimes that can get confusing. Well, it doesn't if you do this, because you experience each human being as an individual. You have your own memories of this person, you have your own emotional relationships, what they've shared with you and what you feel about it, which enables you to far quicker as well decide what kind of connection you want, whether you want to go further romantically with this or not. There's so much can be gleaned so much faster with these five elements, and they're a way of being actually that I'd recommend you bring into everyday life. So you don't just do it on the date, but you bring it to all of your connections, because it will enhance them deeply and enhance your experience of life too.
And that's a really important point there, which I press with my clients of remembering, because a lot of people are waiting until they get into a relationship to become better at relationships. Right? No, that's a guaranteed way to fuck things up, I think. Yep. So don't wait until you're in that relationship. Start practicing those skills here today in all of your relationships. All relationships are an opportunity to get better at them. So as you're doing this, as you date and you're practicing with friends, with family, with colleagues, with people that you just meet, as we mentioned earlier, for those brief encounters, you get to take all this learning into your future relationships, be that much stronger, be that much more adept at being able to create a deep, meaningful connection that lasts the test of time, I think, as well. So, yeah, please stop waiting, start practicing this stuff now.
Yeah, so I remember you like talking about like the fearless daters, you know, being on your fearless dating program, and how it's, of course, they come for dating and to become better at that, but actually they become like the extraordinary person that they want to date, right? They become that person, which obviously makes it, you know, more likely to bring in someone who is extraordinary and that who matches where they've become themselves, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a big important part of the work, isn't it?
Really important. I actually got an epically long message from one of my clients who graduated from Fearless Dating earlier or last year, and she was sharing how her relationship with her father and her sister have improved immensely because she's putting to work the practices that we were going through and we were really implementing in the Fearless Dating program. So don't let the Fearless Dating title fool you. It goes way deeper than that. It's beautiful. It has this ripple effect out into so many areas of our lives if we're willing to utilize what we learn in these other areas of our lives, right? So really important, really important. So just going to do a quick recap. So we had the prep work, we're activating the senses, see, hear, feel. Then we go into that abyss of silence. This isn't just being quiet, this is creating that space of quietness within ourselves as well, right? And then we bring that courageous, loving presence into the connection, that willingness to go first, that willingness to build a bridge between ourselves and the person that we're connecting with by taking the lead, but also by being willing to take a risk that we may say something that they don't approve of or like or anything like that, but all the while knowing that it's going to lead to the possibility of us getting really clear about whether this is a connection for us or not. Right? Really, really important. And then we go into the date itself where we are building that VR world as someone is sharing with us. We are having a visceral experience of what they're sharing so that it becomes that much more meaningful and that much more of a memory. As you said, I know there's a lot of people dating right now where it's like 3 Zoom dates in an evening, right? Back to back to back, because they don't have to go from venue to venue. It's like, all right, might as well do this. So how do you remember? How do you know, oh, okay, that person experienced that, and this is the kind of connection that we had together versus the second date versus the third date? Well, one of the ways is by building this VR world. And like you and I, we don't make notes in our coaching sessions with clients ever, because we are creating this visceral experience with them, and it becomes an embodied experience, doesn't it, for us with our clients? Which is really, really, really important. So yeah, build that VR world, immerse yourself in that VR world, and allow for that person to immerse themselves in your VR world by the way that you share and you articulate, right? Do you have any sort of pointers around how people can more powerfully share their experiences to invite people into their VR world?
Yeah, and it's part of the courageous, loving presence, actually. It's part of that. Because the reality is, a lot of the time we're protecting ourselves, right? So we'll share, but we'll talk about something. So we might talk about something that's happened. But we're not necessarily naturally going to share the full visceral experience, which is emotional and which has us feel like maybe upset if it's something in the past that we didn't like, or maybe we're talking about a past relationship that ended badly, wherever the conversation flows. And so a really good thing to do is to connect to your relationship to it. It's like, why do you care? Like, what do you feel about this thing you're sharing? Share that. Like, share what it means to you. You know, what it means to you is what's interesting as well. You know, the thing itself, you know, it's not that, it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, I discovered this when I was wanting to coach astronauts years ago, right? As you obviously would know, because I've talked about it before. But, you know, I thought it'd be cool to coach an astronaut, and thought, well, how could I do that? I was on LinkedIn, and I thought astronauts are on LinkedIn, and ended up connecting with 20, 30, 40 people from NASA, SpaceX, some of them astronauts, right? So I started to have conversations with them. And, you know, like one guy, and I love his name's Story Musgrave. He's a great example, right? Awesome. Like, he's done amazing things. Like, he's been in space for more hours, I think, than almost any other astronaut. And he used to talk about how he would sleep like weightless in a cupboard at night, you know. And so his experience, essentially, what it's like to be a consciousness without a body. That's what he was talking about, right? So, I mean, hopefully when you're hearing me talk about it, it's like, it sounds amazing, doesn't it, right? But it wasn't amazing the way he shared it. That's my like interpretation of it. That sort of, I brought the emotion to it. It was very matter of fact. It was all the facts, and which astronauts are obviously, a lot of their training is involved in doing that, to actually shutting down fear and things. So it makes sense. But what I found out from interacting with him and others was that I couldn't connect with them emotionally, which meant I lost the dream to coach an astronaut, because I couldn't connect emotionally with them. And so when you're sharing, it doesn't matter what you share. It doesn't matter how ordinary you think your life has been or things you've done is. The things you care about and you express them emotionally are more likely to have someone else care, because it is that emotional sharing that has us connect. So that's the bravery aspect it will require of you, to share something emotional that you may feel it, and you may get like an echo of the past in that moment that may be difficult for you sometimes, depending on what you're talking about. That's all good, because it's real and it's honest and it's emotional. And for the right person, they're going to like that, because they'll be drawn to the real emotional connection that you're beginning to form. And of course, I mean, if you're dating and you don't want an emotional connection, what the hell are you doing?
Why are we here?
Yeah.
It's so important, because there often when we're doing this dating work, one of the questions can be, well, how can I be more attractive? And another thing that people talk about as well is that I want to be in a relationship that's deeply passionate. I want to be passionate in my relationship. And then they're void of all passion, completely void of all passion, which is very unattractive. And good luck trying to create that in your relationship if you don't have any of that.
Bringing it to the party,
exactly, right? And I think there is nothing more attractive, regardless of whether you find the topic interesting or not. But to see a passionate person speak about something that they love, that is important to them, is such an attractive quality. And I think we can all bring that to the table if we're willing to just not, as you said, don't list a bunch of things, don't speak about how it happened, but go into the experience, go into the lived experience. And when we think about values, right, being with someone that has shared values to us, well, sometimes we're not always with someone that has completely the same set of values, but through the way that they share with us, what they value becomes important to us, because we see how important it is to them. And we're like, I love that about them. I love that about them, because it's so important to them. It's important to me. It makes him so happy. I love that, and I want to support that, and I want to nurture that for them. Or just by you being passionate about what you love, or the life you lead. So be passionate, people.
And the beautiful thing is that if you do this, if you actually, when you do share, you're sharing an emotional moment, so you're going there first. What that does is, as well, for you, because especially most people don't do that naturally. It's not something they'll do just with people. They might do it with close friends or people they trust in that way, but they don't do it in everyday life. So actually, they probably don't do it enough in their other relationships either. By doing this, you actually connect more to what you feel. You actually become more connected to the passion of life itself. And you become more connected to yourself by sharing your past. So your past comes alive within you. you have access to more of yourself, which makes you more interesting. He talks about attractiveness there, and attractiveness is not how someone looks, it is the feeling you get from sparking with someone. So I've had many times when there's not someone, whether they're attractive or not, hasn't really noticed them until they've spoken and shared something, and suddenly I'm like, whoa, who are you? Hello. And the other way, actually, when I've actually been attracted to someone and then I've spoken to them and I do not like the person they're choosing to be, and I have, even though technically they would be seen as very attractive, and I really thought so beforehand, they become extremely ugly. This one person in particular who I was attracted to for months, actually, once I got to know her, I couldn't see her as anything except this ugly person, and she was no longer attractive physically at all, after getting to know her, what she was actually like and what she did to people, So the being that you are, that's what makes you attractive, the spark of life within you that makes you you. That's the stuff, your unique experience of life, because there's not a single human being on the planet who has experienced life as you have. Nobody has. It's every single experience you've had, even if they're similar to others, your own relationship to it will be unique. And you need to be connected to your uniqueness. And where do we find that? In your emotional experiences of life.
And that's part of being fearless, a fearless dater, being connected to your uniqueness, and then being like, here world, see it.
Yeah,
because I'm willingly sharing it. So important. I think a big part of how this relationship, you and I, came to be was we were at an event, at a dinner, and we connected because I think there was an energy emanating out from the both of us. I know for me specifically, I remember that I think you're the one person that I actually remember connecting with deeply from that dinner that we were at. And I remember saying to my sisters after, I was like, yeah, we need to connect with this guy. Like, we need to get to know, I want to get to know this guy more. And it just obviously led to the relationship that we have now to this day. And it was because of what you were sharing, how you were sharing it in that space, in that moment, that just grabbed my attention. So it's powerful. Yeah,
likewise. It's one of those things where the spark of connection. You can't always know what it is or why it's there, right? But obviously, same for you, right? We followed up afterwards. We stayed in contact. What were we talking? Was that 5 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, 20. It was just before I was about to go to Bali. So December 2015.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
So just over 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And that spark of connection, we didn't know what kind of connection it would be. We just thought I thought you were awesome, you thought the same, and we just connected. And eventually it moved into me becoming your coach and doing these adventures that life became, right?
Yeah. Let's not forget the dancing, so
Damn right, and that's continuing. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So,
or my attempts at dancing is probably more accurate.
I think it's turning into dancing now. So
there are occasionally. I do have the occasional few seconds.
Yeah, those moments. Let's see your head bob. There we go. Go.
Yeah, check that.
There you go. See, all this was created because of that spark of connection, right? This is really important. So we've got some things coming through here. Mel's going crazy with the hearts. She's loving what we're sharing here today, which is great. And then we've got Jodie, who said, you might have just touched on it, but I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how to be careful not to overshare when looking to make a connection. Oh, good question.
So the first thing is, it's one of those things when you probably need to overshare because the reality is if you're scared of oversharing, you're probably holding back way too much. So it's one of those things where you can only know what is oversharing for you when you go too far. Now, a simple rule actually can be, if you haven't shared something, so maybe you're talking about a past, something you're ashamed of, for instance, and you haven't yet spoken about it with people that you're already close to, if you start sharing it in a relationship like that, it's probably not the place to begin for most people, right? In the kind of spark of connection, it probably isn't there. So I would recommend, if you've got anything like that, friends or family members, someone you actually already are trust and connected to. Begin there first. Make sure you're not dragging that past experience with you and it's affecting your present. So that can really help. But most of the time you can't really overshare if you're sharing honestly and also connected with the person and the moment. Because, I remember, I remember being at Tesco's checkout, and I can't remember what it was, but it was just before Father's Day, and the woman says, like, what are you getting your father for Father's Day? And I just said, my father's died, actually. And she goes, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I said, no, I actually really love to talk about my father. And I shared something about him and about his character, and it was lovely. And then she started sharing about her dad. And she was telling me about how her father he was the helicopter pilot, and he had a private company that one day became the emergency helicopter service we have now, right? So he started off and it became that. But he said in the 90s, he was hijacked, and he had to fly up by gunpoint and had to fly his helicopter into a prison to create a prison break, right? So it was obviously on the news and all that. So that it's just cool, right? So we shared that little moment. There were people behind us who were like, trying to get their shopping, but we were just having that moment of connection. It took all of about 5 minutes, I think. But it began by her just a very simple thing of like talking about Father's Day, me being honest enough to share the fact that he died and then share something beautiful about him, which sparked her connection of wanting to share something about her dad that was awesome. And that happened in only 5 minutes. So, some people might go, oh, you can't talk about the fact that your father died because it's depressing, or how might someone react? I don't care. That was an honest, flowing moment, and I want to have those sparks in any moment. And that's how you can connect deeply and quickly with people if you have access to that. Now, the truth is, if you're worried about oversharing, you won't have access to that, which means you don't have access to yourself. You don't have access to all the wonderful things within yourself because of that. If you're scared of sharing certain things you're ashamed of, you also won't have access to the things you're proud of either. It's like this. It's a spectrum that works at both ends. So I'd recommend you deliberately overshare, and you just feel the pain of oversharing. And then if you feel like you've overshared, you can say, I think I overshared there. Right? You can just be honest about that and choose to grow through that. You cannot protect yourself and create a real connection with people. All you're going to do is create this. You've got a barrier between you and them, and they don't ever get to know the real you. And then this is the mistake a lot of people make. And when I ran that group Deep Connections with my friend, we kept going on about this. If you've got things you're ashamed of that you think someone might judge and reject you for if they found out, you really need to get that stuff out early. Because if you don't, what might happen is you create a connection and you've hidden this thing, and then it can be friends as well, right? Weeks, months, maybe even years later, suddenly you feel, okay, now I'm going to share. And then they reject you and judge you for that because they would never have accepted you for whatever reason. And now it really hurts because now you think you've got this relationship and you find out it wasn't what you thought. You feel like you're being like the relationship has been, you've been like rejected in a much deeper way than if you've only just met someone. It's like the earliest stage for someone to go, I'm not happy with what you've done. I don't want to see you anymore. Is when you just meet. That's the best time to share this stuff. When you have the least investment.
Yeah, 100% feels that. It's the least painful at that point as well.
Yeah,
right?
It's only going to get worse the longer you know someone.
Exactly. It's that whole procrastination thing of that, we've spoken about it before, that almost like the unpaid bill, right? You're like, I'll get to, and it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger within you and consumes more and more and more energy, where you're not even focused on that person anyway in the end. So why not get it done earlier and see the truth of the connection, the truth of the relationship there? And it goes back to that thing that you once shared with us, which was go too far to know how too far, how was it? How far too far?
Yes, I can't remember who. It's a famous quote from someone, but it's like you have to go too far to know where is the right place to go. You have to go too far, otherwise you don't know where the line is for you. And most people, you are hiding back like miles behind the line, and so the spark of who you are is not shining out because you're too scared. And so go further. And what I'd recommend, if you can, if this is something new to you and you are scared of this, if you've got, bring in friends, bring in family members. I know with Arte, when you run your groups, you know, that's one of the things your groups does. It bonds people together. So you have someone on your side, so that, yes, you may be going into this date alone, but if it goes badly and, you know, you feel terrible afterwards, you've got someone you can speak to share the pain, whatever horrible thing happened, right? But you don't want to stop risking, because the risk is what creates the potential for real connection.
Yeah, it goes back to the willingness for a connection to come to the end if it's not the right connection, by taking this risk of perhaps oversharing or just deeply connecting by going first. That's really important. So thank you, Jodie. I hope that answers your question. Great question for all of us to hear. And any more questions, do send them through.
And we're getting a load of loves coming through.
Yeah,
I think
loads
for
of
you.
hearts. Everyone's going crazy with the hearts. Yes, keep them going. Keep them going. We love them. Good for our egos, right, David?
I love the love.
I love the love, right? So then that takes us to essentially the final part of the date itself. Now, this is the counterintuitive one, right? Because it's used a certain way within coaching, but we're actually going to speak about it from the other perspective when it comes to dating. So could you share step 6?
Yes, this is interruption. So to interrupt. So it's very important within coaching to artfully interrupt someone, because people go into their patterns, they go into their responses, and we need to know how to use that well and to stop people just go spiraling within the way they spiraled before. So there are many ways when we use interruption artfully within coaching. Now, when it comes to like personal connections and romance and those kind of connections, the truth is you're probably doing way too much of it. You know, we alluded to it earlier, but it's actually, interrupting should be not what you're doing probably at all, actually, I would say, especially in the early stages. Like, let someone actually get to the end of what they were going to say. You know, this again, speak back to the anti-sign. You know, when someone said something and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this, and you've got this you want to share, or whatever it is that's burning inside in that moment, that is a sign to be silent for longer. You know, bring your awareness back to the person. Actually wait till they get to the end. You know, what they're sharing. What you have to say is not more important than what this person has to say. Because that's what you do if you're interrupting. You're saying that your words are more important, what your feelings in this moment are more important than this other person. And you're having that person feel unsafe every time you interrupt. They're less likely to share openly. They're less likely to go to a deeper, more interesting place with you. So interrupting with regards to deep connection is a lot of the time a big fat no.
Yes, yeah. It hugely fractures a connection, a potential connection with someone, when you're just like, you're just in there with, because in the fearless dating group coaching, when we're doing our rounds of sharing to help nurture and learn how to co-create deep connection with someone, we have this process where everyone's sharing the or finishing a sentence stem, as we've done in our coaching sessions, right, where everyone shares their personal response to that sentence stem. And the thing that the rule of the game there is that everyone else just has to be almost reaction free. It's not, you can't interrupt or intervene in any way on that person's share. But initially, when the game is first played, you will have clients going, yeah, yeah, I had that whole, don't we? Or someone might get sad because they've shared something, you know, challenging, and you can see people just wanting to go into that space with them to, as you said, to kind of as a reaction to their own discomfort. But what they're doing is massively disrupting the potential of connection for that person to actually really feel safe and held and seen by the people that are in that circle with them. So it's such an important skill that it's important to remember that we're actually fracturing connection when we're interrupting badly on dates. We're stealing away that opportunity from ourselves and our date for the potential for a deep connection to be formed. So this is key. And just dial back the interruption, people. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, something, because language is unconscious, we're not really we don't think about every word that's coming out of our mouth, right? So when someone is sharing like that and we stay silent, they are actually, if we stay silent long enough, they are actually connecting deeper to themselves during that. So what may begin as maybe something superficial, if we stay silent long enough, they're more likely to connect to a deeper place within themselves, which maybe they don't normally connect to either because they're rushing, because they're self-conscious, the stuff that you have going on, they have going on in their own way. But through silence and holding that space of like, I'm here and I'm happy, I'm listening to you, you are being heard, that person can go further maybe than they've ever gone before. And then you might get to meet the real person that's there, because they're meeting themselves at the same time, actually, a lot of the time. And then you get to meet them and you get to find out if it's the kind of person and kind of connection you want. You're far more likely to discover it quicker when you do that. Also, from a child, a young baby, toddler, one of the biggest challenges that they get created is the fact that they can't communicate yet, right? They're kind of, when they're starting to speak, they're like crying, and you kind of try and figure out what they do, what they actually want. But that feeling of not being heard, that doesn't go away. That is a strong emotional reaction that becomes imprinted within all of us to some degree, to be honest, which we then carry into adulthood in that way. It's one of the reasons why when arguing, we shout. We're shouting to be heard, and so when it comes to this, because most people aren't actually listening, when someone does, and the way that you show them you are is by not interrupting, right? So staying silent longer, having that bit of silence, and only when they're actually complete do you ever say anything. They feel heard, and that is such a deeply satisfying experience that the chances for you to connect is just much, much higher than, in almost any other connection that you'll find.
Yeah. And as you were sharing that, it reminded me of actually I was connecting with someone that's new to the real estate community here on Instagram. And I asked her, what it was that she wanted to get from being a part of this space. And she shared that she's just really been enjoying what I've been sharing in the content. I was like, so what's your dating journey like? And she's like, oh, I'm happily married, but I'm really loving the content. And I was like, oh, that's great. And so it reminded me that the things that we are talking about here today, these 7 elements, this isn't just for dating. If you are in a relationship, what's that? Relationship.
That's what happens in some rural towns.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, let's not go there, David. If you're in a relationship, a well-established one, bring these 7 elements in, and the quality of your connection will deepen. The ability for you to learn so much more about each other will increase so much, because that's one of the things we hear a lot, right? Of we know each other. I know him inside out. I know how she's going to react to that thing. And we just expect, because we've been with this person for so long, we know everything about them, when we don't know anywhere near that. Right?
It's probably it gets worse, actually. The longer we are with people, the less we know them, because we tend to not, like when you meet someone for the first time, you're asking these questions, you're opening up, and you're getting to know each other. Once you've been together for a while, you tend to just be living your lives, and you'll talk about your day, you talk about what you're going to do, but you don't go into the depth of your characters, who you are, your relationship to life, and all the things that you would do in the beginning. And I think it's why a lot of relationships do grow apart when they probably didn't need to, because they don't realize it's a continual nurturing thing of connection that has to go, forever, really. Continuously getting to know each other is quite an important aspect of any relationship.
Yeah. And I always think, when we're in relationship with someone, we can't assume, even if we're living together, we're going on the same holiday, we've signed up to the same gym, that our experiences of those things are going to be exactly the same. No way.
They can't be.
Exactly. Yeah. No way at all. But we walk around with that assumption in relationships. Whereas actually, if at the end of your gym session or at the end of your or during your retreat that you're going on together, you actually spent the time to find out, well, how was that crazy yoga class that we did together, or what that's weird smoothie that they made us drink, or whatever it was, right? If you actually asked with the intention to listen to that person and hear what their experience was, to go, as we said earlier, go into their VR world, immerse yourself in that VR world, you will find out so much about your partner, that I think even if you've been together for a long time, you will surprise yourself, I think, and surprise each other, and there's such beauty that can be created as a result of that. So for all you coupled up folk out there, 7 elements, implement straight away. Right? Which takes us then to the thank you takes us to the 7th and final element of this journey that you've been taking us on.
Yes, this is intervention. So in coaching, this is when you want to use minimal intervention possible, right? So one of those minimal interventions is mirror language. So essentially in coaching, it will be when someone's shared something that you feel is meaningful, you've felt it as a coach, you mirror it back. And if you are correct, it will send them into a deeper place. Now, same is true for people, and for, to actually connect with someone, when you use their own words, ideally in the way they've said it, you are showing them, both consciously and subconsciously, that you understood what they're saying. You get them, and you are, with them in what they've shared. You are part of the same, when you do that. So mirror language is one of those to use. Paraphrasing is another, actually, which is very good and very important for disagreements to be resolved as well. When you're listening to people, is to paraphrase. So when someone says something, you say, "So this is what I understand of what you said. Am I right?" And so bridging those gaps between people as well, like the interventions that we're talking about here, are ways that you can nurture a deeper connection purposefully with someone.
Yeah, really, really important. So that is, those are the 7 elements of pure coaching. But
just want to add one more to the intervention. Actually, it's a very simple one, which is very simply, and this goes for all relationships. Like whenever anyone's talking about anything, obviously, if you're doing the 5 elements and they're connected to what they're sharing, you may already get this, and you can reflect it back to them. But if you don't know what it means to someone, like, why are you sharing this? Why do you care about this? What does it actually mean? Just ask. Because that's when you get to know someone really but whatever they've done, whatever they're talking about, why do they care about it? What does it mean to them? So those 2 questions there are really ones that you recommend that you use regularly with people, so you actually get to understand them and not just hear the stuff that they've done. Because loads of people have done the same stuff. It doesn't mean anything, but what it means to an individual and why that person cares, now that's interesting, right? And that's where we can connect with someone, or not, but at least we'll know.
That's where the possibility for attraction really lies as well. When you hear that experience meant that to me, this is important to me because of this, and we go beyond the making of assumptions, which so many of that's dangerous territory that so many of us enter into when we're dating, going to create relationships. We assume that we know what they mean by this thing or that thing.
Yes, and that's a good one to bring up. Actually, you're almost always wrong.
Yes.
You're almost always wrong. What someone means. Almost always. We are more different than we're the same individually. Because we have this very unique life and experience and relationship to life. No human being has ever lived life the way you have, or I have, or anybody. It means that although we have shared experiences, it may on the surface look the same. Our internal relationship to things are vastly different, but we can only find out through communication and connection where that is and where we can come together. So I'd remove assumptions from all of your relationships. And if you want to have one thing that could potentially solve and prevent all future relationship problems, it is to never assume always to ask and check.
Yeah. As one of my ex-boyfriends used to say, assumptions are the mother of all fuck-ups.
Yeah.
Yes,
Very poetic.
Very. He was. One of the things that really stuck with me from that relationship. So yeah, definitely. Don't assume that you know what someone else is thinking, feeling, sharing. So yeah, 7 elements that can completely transform the way that you approach relationships or connections from this very moment onwards. I highly, highly recommend. If you've joined us halfway through, this replay is going to be available. Please take the time to watch it back and to make notes and start practicing this stuff straight away. As both David and I shared, don't wait. Stop waiting for the perfect opportunity to get better at this stuff. You'll be shit at it if you wait. Just be shit at it now. The shit space, right? The shit space. Revel in the shit space now so that you get the opportunity to be so much better at it later down the line in your committed relationships everywhere, really. So with the 7 elements, so we've got the prep, we've got the date itself, but then there's the closing ceremony, right? The close of a date. So could you speak to the importance of giving space after your date?
Oh yeah, it's vital. So just like you shouldn't rush before the date, so you're not deeply connected. Afterwards, like take some time, like close your eyes, just bask in whatever you've just experienced. Connect to what you feel. Don't try and think about it. You don't need to do anything. It will happen if you actually do this. Just shut your eyes and connect. Like, how do you feel? You'll notice, like, sometimes you might feel tight in the chest, or you might feel expanded and warm and lovely. Whatever's going on within you, your body and your emotions will be telling you what that experience meant to you. Were there any red flags in there? And this is very, very important, because many times people miss red flags because they don't actually connect to what they feel, and they get used to ignoring the small red flags. Like, I know, must be wrong is a common one, right? It can't be, or it's only a small thing, so I'm probably making too much of it, and these kind of things. Whereas actually, those tiny things could be vital. They could be clues that this is not the right thing for you. There could be clues that this person isn't actually a safe environment for you to connect with. It may be maybe like you get triggered by this person and you're not safe for them, because maybe this person reminds you of someone else, and then you didn't realize that until you took the time afterwards to connect. You're like, okay, I don't want to go down that route, because you don't want to, but give yourself that space after, with no distractions, just to feel and bask in what happened, and you'll naturally have things come to you if you do this properly.
Things won't be missed if you create the space for this. And within fearless dating, we spend a lot of time on review and reflection, and especially when we go into the date and create part of the program of how to actually reflect deeply on a date, so that you have a wealth of information for you to be able to make a decision as to whether you want to continue this connection with someone, or even if it's ended there, what you can take into your next date and the date after that and your relationship. So it's such a vital practice to start building in to your dating journey from the get-go. So yeah, we've got what's Jody saying? Assume makes an ass out of you and me. Exactly. And it's serious. Craig David featuring Artful Interrupter. Oh, right, there you go. We can all become artful interrupters as well, right? Use it powerfully. So thank you so much, David. This was awesome. Didn't expect it to be anything less than awesome, but I'm glad that it fulfilled expectations. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really, really did. And I think having it in the context of dating, I think this is pure gold for anyone that's joined us today. As I said, the replay will be available for you to watch this back and make notes and start practicing straight away. Thank you so much. And David, you have a free audio that's available for anyone that's interested in the 7 elements of pure coaching work, that they can download at your website, which I will be linking in the description below when I upload this to IGTV. And so you can sign up for that. You can get that free audio download, and you can start learning and practicing these 7 elements straight away. And if you're interested in David's work as well, I'll also be linking in his social media profiles, so you can follow him and stalk him everywhere, because he is one to follow, because he's just...
I do enjoy being stalked.
Yeah, right. Don't all. Yeah, there's just so much gold that you're always dropping for us, and I think more of the world needs to hear this stuff. And from what I can see in the comments, people have been loving this. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, guys. It was amazing. Jody says thank you. Isuru has got a thanks and a clap of hands. Food. B Eat says thanks a lot. Learned a lot, and this indeed is pure gold. So
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I had a great time. Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining in. You know, it always makes it interesting as well when people jump in, and all those lovely loves that came through as well. Yeah. So thank you for all of that.
Absolutely. And remember, you can still comment in the replay as well. So if there's anything that you want clarification on, if you have any questions, please continue this conversation. It'd be wonderful to hear what your insights are. But thank you so much, David. I'm so glad I was your first IG live.
Thank you. Yeah. I still want to find out how to, like, there's a little X on the top here, right?
Yeah.
If I click that, am I going to leave it, or will it get rid of my video?
I think that's how it works.
Okay, because I would like, if anybody knows, actually, I'd like to get rid of myself, because that's been a problem. I don't like seeing myself whilst interacting. Again, it's one of those things that gets in the way of connection. Little tip for you doing on Zoom, minimize your own video.
Yes.
Don't have your own video there, because it's distracting to see ourselves, right?
Yeah, which is a great segue, David, because next week I'm speaking with James Lavers all about how to do video well.
Now, he is the man.
He's the king of video. So that was a really brilliant segue. Thank you for lining that up for me.
You're extremely welcome.
So join us Thursday next week, 7 p.m. again, for us to dive into video dating, where you take the 7 elements that you've learned today, coupled with how to do video dating well. Guys, you will be flying. You will be supersonically charged with your dating experiences. It's gonna be so great what you create in this time. Pandemic or not, your dating life could really excel if you really implement what we've discussed here today and throughout this series. So I'm excited to hear what you all create. So thank you so much, David, for sharing this with us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining and interacting. I really enjoyed this evening with you all, and replay will be available. And I will see you next week. All right. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.